First question. During last semester's shuttle conflict, a number of students expressed frustration with the social life on Bard's campus. Students described a fragmented and divided community where the majority of events either took place off campus or in individual students' dorm rooms. Do you see any current problems with the social life at Bard College? And if so, how do you plan to address it? We are going to begin with Rosette. You do a random coin toss. 3 minutes.
All right. So obviously I do see this as a problem. Our community, because so much of us live off campus, has become extremely disjointed. And due to that, I think we really need to speak louder for the need of more student space and more students coming back to our campus, specifically because of our lack of student housing on campus. I would hope to continue the sort of conversations that have already been going on with the Board of Trustees about having a new dorm built on campus to bring more students back to campus. And in terms of how to get students onto more on-campus events, I think the Root Cellar serves as a great example as a club head, Maddie Strassler, who is an off-campus student, but brings a lot of off-campus students to the Root Cellar for that event. So I think club heads specifically reaching out to off-campus students to bring them back on for events would be a great way to sort of remedy the situation of a lot of off-campus students just not being available or around at on-campus events.
Do I go? Yeah. All right. Well, I've definitely stated my opinion on this several times. I think there's some serious problems with the social life at Bard. In response to the opinion piece I published in the Free Press about the lack of engagement here, people started talking about the myth of apathy at Bard. Apathy isn't a myth here. It's a serious issue. And it's a hard issue to address because I think a lot of it has to do with this sort of atmosphere Bard has. But there are a lot of things that we're failing to address, such as the fact that 0.003% of our tuition goes to student activities. I don't really know how we're expected to have much of a great on-campus life if we're not having any of our $60,000 tuition really go to student activities, which could take up nearly half our time here. And so I think there's a fundamental problem when, 59,940 of our dollars are going to things other than student activities. And I think that's really the root of the problem, and if I were elected, that's the first thing I'd address.
How do I use a rebut card? I think I do very much agree with you. I think that PlanCom has PlanCom has, John Greenberg has done a great job addressing the fact that our student activities fee needs to increase so more money can go to student activities. But I very much disagree with the idea and the myth that Bard students are apathetic. I strongly disagree. I think Bard students are passionate, driven, and exciting and wonderful individuals, but sometimes we're so driven and passionate about what we do on campus, it's hard to come together for events and for sort of maybe even like lectures or talks on campus because we're really busy and passionate. So I think a more productive way of addressing what might be seen as apathy would be to connect us through those passions, either through student groups who are working toward the same goal, or even in more interdepartment and more departmental sort of events, activities. And yeah, thanks.
I'll rebut also. All right, well, I mean, Rosetta and I definitely hang out with different people, and so I think that's probably going to be part of the root of our disagreement. But I can tell you that there are students here that reach their senior year and they're like, oh, what the fuck was I doing for the past 4 years? And that is an issue that we have to address. Like, maybe you don't know those people, but I do, and I really care about those people. I'm just like, where did we go wrong? And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that kids are really, during L&T, they go and smoke pot the whole time, and then they don't really learn to develop a work ethic, and they don't really encounter activities that are really going to engage them. And I think that's a problem we need to address.
Next question. As members of the Constitution Committee, you are both familiar with the workings and operations of student government at Bard. What do you see as the most important change to the current student government, and how might you address this issue as Speaker? Jeremy.
Can you ask that one more time, please?
As members of the Constitution Committee, you are both familiar with the workings and operations of student government at Bard. What do you see as the most important change to the current student government, and how might you address this as Speaker?
Well, I guess it would certainly be the creation of the role of Speaker, because no longer do we have an executive running the Central Assembly. It was formerly the Central Committee. Instead, now we have this Speaker, who no longer is the representative of student government, but the representative of the entire student body. And that's really, when we created that role, that's when I started to actually consider running for this, because it's no longer for somebody that spent their entire time in student government. Instead, it's for somebody that has spread out their activities across a range of things that go on at Bard, whether it's Spring Clean Planning Committee, whether it's the Free Press, whether it's a TLS project. But it's somebody that has to come and embody what every Bard student wants. And it can't just be somebody that spent their time in student government, you know, representing those interests, because they're often isolated from what a lot of Bard students want. And the ability to know what Bard students want really lies in experiences that are outside of student government and throughout the community.
I think Jeremy's right in saying that, you know, sometimes student government does feel really isolated or exclusive. And while I could point to the Speaker position alone as being the most important change, I think that sort of the language that was included in the Constitution for committees to work together, you know, as a team, and for the student government to not just be an exclusive group of people that, you know their names and they seem to represent themselves, but a body of people that are both inclusive and transparent and available to students. I think the Speaker role really does achieve that in a great way, but I would like to disagree with the point that it can't be someone who's been involved in student government. I have been pretty involved in student government, and I've seen great change over the past 2 years. But I think because I've seen this change, I'm the kind of, I'm the person who can really bridge the gap from a student government that was, in a way exclusive, to a student government that really represents the student body as a whole, as it absolutely should. So, yeah.
The current president has spent a lot of time, student president, has spent a lot of time focusing on the need for a new dormitory on campus. This marks a shift of focus for student government towards larger, more long-term goals rather than smaller, short-term goals. Which approach do you think is more effective? And give us a couple of examples of the kinds of goals you believe are attainable during your year as Speaker.
I'm just copying down the questions. So, the second part was what kinds of goals are attainable, and the first part was what again?
The focus between short-term goals versus kind of large-scale goals, such as a new dormitory.
Is my time starting? Okay, thanks. Okay, so I think that why that focus has been from the problem from the first question is we really do need a new dorm on campus, and that's not a short-term goal. But I also think that there are many short-term goals that can achieve a great sense of community and sort of foster excitement on campus that are just as important. So yes, the president has defined her role that way, but the speaker role is a different role. I think that next year student government will be continuing to do both of those goals, advocating for the long-term project of, yes, we need more space on campus. No, it's not acceptable that students currently live in trailers. Not. But we also need to think about short-term goals. How do we create space on campus right now for dialogue, meetings, and exchange to happen between students? We have to figure something out in the short term because you are still all here right now. So I think a compromise of both are really important. Next year, I would hope and I would try to have student government be doing both of those, but I think the really important ones might be connecting students on campus, making dialogue between those passionate people that aren't always connected happen more frequently and more deeply. And I think that would be a great way to foster community and get a lot done with the power of the amazing power of the passionate student body that we have here.
I don't really believe that long-term projects are going to be that effective or attainable for student government. That's not really our role as student government. It's to make sure we have a functioning student body, and when we start focusing on these long-term goals, that it's really not our job to do. I mean, we don't have money, we don't really have the resources, we barely have access to the Board of Trustees, and therefore it's kind of hard to say that it's a good idea to focus on long-term goals when we have a social life here that's kind of deficient, as I said before. I think what we really need to focus on in student government is short-term goals, enhancing student life through various projects that really have an immediate effect. As perhaps if things get really good and it feels like social life is really robust here, we can focus on pushing the board and people that can actually help make long-term changes, make those changes. But for now, what we really need to focus are the issues that affect us immediately. Things like the Tivoli shuttle, things like DTR and Chartwells, and the things that we really need to address in order to have a healthier community. Because, a dorm's a dorm, but none of us are going to see it. And the thing is while I appreciate the future of students at Bard, it's really not our role to focus on those long-term goals. It should be to enhance the community as much as we can while we're here.
I'm just going to ask a clarifying question. Part of the question was also, what are some of the attainable goals that you see for your year as speaker? So if you could articulate those, I guess we'll go Jeremy first.
Well, like I said, I'd obviously love to see the student activities tuition go up. I mean, I'm not going to give you a number amount because you know how the school is with money, but I really would love to see that be realized, and I don't see why it can't be. I mean, 0.003% of our student tuition going to student activities is just absurd. So that's obviously the most effective thing we can do. But student government also needs to make itself more accessible, more fun for students. While this is a great turnout, you go to most forums and nobody's here. What we really need is, well, I say we bring beer to forums and things that are fun. I think Bard needs more fun times. Like, I really think that's what's most fundamental to driving us towards a healthier, more connected community is you gotta party.
I agree. Beer should be back at forums. But while I also agree there should be more fun times at Bard, I also think there's a real difference between fun and sustained excitement. And creating the kind of culture where more students are involved or saying that there are not enough fun events and things going on campus, I think sort of undermines the hard work that a lot of the Spark office, club heads, publication, student leaders, and sports captains already do here. In terms of attainable goals, I really do think the activities fee, raising it is an attainable one. I think that Carter Vanderbilt's food initiative is one that definitely will be happening. 24-hour space, student government becoming more accessible and inclusive. But I think ultimately, being the speaker of the student body, you don't get to decide these goals. The students get to decide these goals. If I were to make those decisions and top down do that, I wouldn't be doing my job. I'm representing you, so you are the people who have to come to me with those, as well as the very wonderful other committees of student government who work hard on these different branches.
But otherwise, the other approaches to this are making a greater presence. I mean, I don't really know why nobody would know who Kara is, because she's definitely active and present and does a great job. But I think part of this issue lies in the fact that student government is very contained to student government. It's not connected to the community. There's a real sense of detachment that exists. And therefore, what I'd like to do is have Bard student government throw parties, do things where students really are involved in interacting with student government, seeing what they're doing, talking to student government members, doing things that have these tangible presences on campus. So events that are hosted by a Bard student government. Those are all things that are entirely essential to having a greater presence on campus. Because right now, when we put out a survey, when student government puts out a survey, or we have these small events, nobody really goes. I mean, forums aren't attended, nobody really cares. But we bring beer to forums, we throw parties, we enhance life through events and ways for students to become engaged. I think that will be the best way of ensuring greater knowledge of student government. And if I smile a lot.
Yeah, I really do agree. I think there needs to be a change in the culture surrounding student government. It can no longer be a very exclusive body of people, but I think that happens in a very large scale of a sense. I think that a bigger involvement during L&T, student government as a resource, student government as this exciting body of upperclassmen that are so excited to welcome freshmen here, from the first days that they get here, part of orientation, and I think that having more PC involvement in student government also could help that. I'd also like to point out that Jeremy, being part of the Constitution Committee, with me and Alex de la Sera and many other very dedicated individuals, created the Secretary of Press position, which the lovely Claire Bunscoten currently holds and will hold next year. So now we have one person that controls sort of the PR of student government, and there's the lovely press. And I think that will really be a huge help in sort of spreading the word of, infographics, how we work, what's going on. And I also think that we really need to sort of make ourselves available, you're right, through events, but it's more than just, through events, it's being available on campus, it's holding office hours, it's having really, really public meetings. The best student life committee meetings I've had this semester have been really big, really public, really open. And I think if we have more really big, public, open, accessible, and exciting events, whether they're big fun events, on the weekends, or it's, over a really exciting issue on a Tuesday night that's really well publicized, I think that could be pretty effective.
So, you both seem like really lovely people with nice ideas and approaches to student government. That being said, what is something specific that makes you a better candidate for speaker than your opponent?
I think it's me first. Is it me first? Okay. I know that Jeremy is going to say that I've been steeped in the student government pot for far too long. So let me address that now. I I think that I have enormous perspective. I've been through and seen great change, and I've already said that. But I think that the perspective I bring has been from the student leaders at Bard that I've seen make poor decisions. And it's from the student leaders at Bard that I look up to. I remember looking up to Nate Zeitlin my sophomore year when he was really level-headed, facilitating forums, basically as a diplomat in the spring of last year. And it's, it's people like that and things like this that I think with the new writing of the Constitution and my past experience, I'm able to sort of create a really easy transition from one until the other. Again, I've used the words transparent and inclusive before, and they're on posters, but I really do mean that. I think that I really have the capabilities to create a transparent workings with the administration so that administrative decisions are open, available for dialogue and engagement, and not just draconianly passed down to you. I think that student government needs to be an inclusive ally to students so that if the student labor dialogue has over 500 signatures on their petition and someone says, no, I will not go into a meeting with you, that's not student government doing its job. The Speaker of the student body should be mandated next year to go into those kinds of meetings with Papa Demetrio and Vice President Jim Brudvig to speak for student issues. And that's something that I think I could really do well.
I adore Rosette, and I was really hoping not to get a question like this. However, I don't want to make this about Rosette because I think she's qualified for this position. I think she'd do a good job. But I think what we need to take into account is what the role of this job is. And the job of the speaker is to speak on behalf of students. It's not to be a compromiser. And Rosette's great at that. And I won't hesitate to admit that. But what we really need is a negotiator. And a negotiator that gets us to what we want when we're addressing the administration. Because hell, we pay their salaries. They should be listening to us when they're making major decisions. We shouldn't have to go after them afterwards. So they need someone that they're going to take seriously, and they know I'll be on their ass if they're not straightforward with us. I mean, and if we're talking about negotiations, I tend to get what I want. If you look at Spring Fling, we had a survey, and we had, I think, 12 options, and I was hoping that one of the top choices we'd be able to get. Not only did we get the very top choice, RJD2, I also got the second top choice, ARAD Music. And to say that saving us $45,000 for probably $18,000, I mean, that's negotiation right there, and that's not the easiest thing to do. But I won't back down, and I think that's what we really need.
You're right, Jeremy, we need a negotiator, and I'd just like to say that I'm so excited for Spring Fling. But I'd also like to say that the sort of diction and tone that I'm hearing in your words right now is one of hostility. And a hostile stance when you're going into a situation of negotiation is never a useful one. We need someone who will not work dotingly for the administration, but not vehemently against, because that's not what we should be doing. We should be, of course, voicing our opinions strongly, but we should come with an open mind as like the speaker should be a professional diplomat who takes their role very seriously. And I think that's something I can offer by not going in, guns blazing, but I think I'll keep my guns in my holsters. Oh, sorry, I mean a sword. I can't carry a gun. I'm a medievalist.
I study strategy, and a lot of this is negotiation and learning how to get what you want. And I think part of that is sometimes you have to put your gun on the table. And the fact is that I don't know how many of you have dealt with Jim Brudvig or David Shine, but those, or even Leon Botstein actually, they're the guys that like being told what you want. They really are not impressed when kids come and are meek with them. They want somebody that is straightforward and adamant in what they're bringing forward to them. I mean, honestly, I would have been kicked out of this school for something I didn't do my first freshman year here if I hadn't been absolutely adamant that I got kicked out for some bullshit. And Leon Botstein respected that. And so that's why I'm still here. And you know, I'm taking that experience, and I'm taking all my experiences since then from this place that I really, truly love, and turning it into turning it into an opportunity to really enhance student life at Bard. And I think that's absolutely essential.
First of all, the Free Press was supposed to announce the Spring Fling performers tomorrow, so no one can leave this room with that information. You never heard who was performing. Second of all,
I did not tweet that because we're breaking it tomorrow.
exactly. Okay, last question. It's a nice question. What makes you proudest to be a Bardian?
I mentioned this in my last answer. My first freshman year here, I got the boot. 2 months into my time here, I was kicked out, and that sucked. And I wasn't even sure if I wanted to come back here, but you know, they held hostage $40,000, and so I didn't really have an option. I came back to Bard. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do everything I can to make the most of this experience. And you know what? I have. I mean, I've gotten involved in every single way I can imagine, whether it's Free Press, student government, Spring Fling, you name it, I've gotten involved and done it. And the fact that every administrator I dealt with in that whole booting process has totally welcomed me with open arms since every student, nobody cast aspersions on me or judgments, at least not to my face. That's really incredible. You know, the kids our age tend to judge a lot. Adults tend to judge a lot. And the fact that I've been able to come here and turn my life around, like literally, I mean, if I hadn't come back to Bard, I'd probably be in prison or dead. And that's hardly an exaggeration, but instead I'm running for Speaker of the student body. And regardless of whether I win, this school has changed my life for the better 1,000 times over. And so that's why I'm proud to be a Bardian.
Quickly, I'd like to say a word about my major, and don't worry, it's related. I'm a joint major here at Bard. I'm joint majoring in medieval literature and philosophy. And what that means, to me at least, is a study of very much philosophy of education and the pedagogies that go along with it, which are very much here embodied at Bard. I really see Bard as one of the last strongholds of the liberal arts. And what that means, the real liberal arts. And what that means is we get roundtable discussions, we get academics, we get zany professors who really believe in you and say crazy stuff, but are ultimately amazing. So I'm proud to be a Bardian because I'm proud to be a liberal arts student, and I'm constantly thinking about not like how to get your votes in this election from strategy, but your experience your experience as a student, your experience as a person in your education is what I deeply care about every day here. I'm also proud to be a Bardian because I'm awed, inspired, and just amazed by the passionate, wonderful, and beautiful people I get to go to school with every day, and that sounds really cheesy. But before I came to Bard, I was not part of the kind of student body that we have here. And I've never felt, I've never felt pushed to be so great by other people until I came here. And it's because of the student body that I love so much, and of the amazing people I see in my classes, and of the art installments, of the dance projects, of the amazing papers that get published, that I really want to represent you next year. And I would be honored to do that. So yeah.